Jake's eyes opened slowly. His head throbbed. His mouth was dry. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet. He tried to move, but heavy chains held his wrists to the cold floor. His body hurt all over, like he had been hit by a tank. He blinked a few times, trying to remember. The last thing he recalled was the battlefield, the sound of plasma fire, screams, and his team yelling his name. But now there was only silence. And then he heard it. Soft breathing. Someone else was in the room with him. He turned his head. A girl sat quietly near the wall, her legs folded under her. Her skin was smooth and light purple, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her hair was silver, long and wild, like moonlight trapped in threads. Her eyes were large and strange, bright gold, glowing faintly like they could see into him. She was beautiful, but she had chains too. When she noticed him looking, she smiled gently. "You are awake," she said, her voice soft like a song. "They said you might not survive." Jake narrowed his eyes. "Where am I? Who are you?" She bowed her head slightly. "I am called Nara. I belong to you now." Jake blinked. "What?" She looked up again, her golden eyes calm. "They gave you to me. You are my reward." Jake pulled on the chains. "I'm not anyone's reward. I'm a soldier, a human." "I know," she said. "That's why they chose you." Jake didn't understand. His brain was foggy, but something felt wrong, deeply wrong. He looked around the room. The walls were smooth, glowing faintly blue. There was no window, no door, just a single dark panel on one wall. The floor was made of some black stone that felt like ice against his skin. He tried again to move, but his limbs were too weak. He had wounds on his arms and legs, dried blood on his shirt. His armor was gone. "Why am I chained?" he asked. Nara didn't answer right away. She looked down, hands resting on her knees. "Because they are afraid of you," she said quietly. Jake frowned. "Who's they?" "The warlords," she whispered. "They rule this planet now. After your army lost, they started taking prisoners. Some are used for labor, some for other things." Jake stared at her. "And what about you?" "I was born a slave," she said. "I have always belonged to someone." Jake felt something heavy in his chest. He had seen many things in war, but this was worse. "Why would they give you a human soldier?" She looked at him with something strange in her eyes. Not fear, not hate. Something softer. "Because I asked for you." Jake froze. "What do you mean you asked for me?" "I saw you fight," she said. "They showed us the battle. You killed their champion with a broken arm, with fire in your eyes. They laughed when you fell. But I did not. I said, I want that one." Jake didn't know what to say. "You should rest," she added, standing slowly. "They will test you soon, to see if you're useful, or just another corpse." She stepped closer and placed something near his mouth, a small piece of fruit, glowing faintly red. He stared at it. "What is that?" "Food," she said. "Not poisoned. I already ate some." Jake hesitated, then bit it. It was sweet and sour. His body felt warmer right away. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Nara looked down at him. "Because," she whispered, "you are not like the others. You looked free, even while falling." She turned and walked back to her corner, curling up on the floor. Jake stared at the ceiling. A slave girl who thought she owned him, and a prison where no one left alive. He didn't know how he would escape. But one thing was clear. He wasn't alone, and maybe, just maybe, she was the key. Jake woke to the sound of humming, not the kind you hear from a person, but a soft vibration in the walls, a low pulse, like the heartbeat of the prison itself. The chains on his wrist were gone. He sat up fast, ready to fight, but found only Nara sitting near him holding a bowl of glowing blue water. "You looked like you were dreaming," she said, calm and quiet. Jake stared at his hands, then at her. What did you do? I told them you accepted me, that you gave in. His eyes narrowed. I didn't. I know, she said, but I lied, for your safety. He stood up, wobbling a little. Why would they believe that? She looked at him, gold eyes shining. Because I touched you while you slept. Just once. It was enough. Jake took a step back. Enough for what? Nara placed the bowl on the floor and stood. In their culture, a touch means ownership. Slaves don't lie. We're punished for it. But they believed me. Jake's mind spun. So, they think I'm your property? She stepped closer. They believe you submitted, that you belong to me now. Jake looked away, clenching his fists. I don't belong to anyone. I know, she said. That's why I did it. He stared at her, confused. She sighed. If they believed you were wild, dangerous, they'd keep you chained, starve you, break you. But now, they think I've tamed you. Jake's jaw tightened. That's not much better. She gave a small smile. No, but it means you're alive, for now. He studied her face, calm, beautiful, but tired. There was no joy in what she did, only survival. Jake sat down again, slow. So what happens next? They will test you, she said. Not with chains, with games, fights. They want to see if you're strong enough for their pits. Jake frowned. Gladiator fights? Nara nodded. Yes, but worse. No rules, no mercy. If you win, you live. If you lose, Jake rubbed his face. Typical aliens. Nara sat beside him, quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, I've seen many humans here. Soldiers, pilots, even generals. None lasted more than a week. Jake looked at her. Then why help me? She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, Because you're different. You didn't scream when you woke, you didn't cry, you looked at me like I was real. Jake was silent. She added, If we work together, maybe we both survive. Jake nodded slowly. All right. Deal. But I lead. You follow. She tilted her head. That's not how this works. They think you follow me. Jake smirked. Then let them keep thinking that. For the first time, Nara laughed. It was soft, strange, and sad. Jake looked at the glowing water, then drank some. So what's the plan? He asked. She looked toward the dark panel in the wall. Tonight they'll take you, make you fight. I'll be there, pretending to cheer. Jake raised an eyebrow. Pretending? She smiled faintly. I don't want you to die. Jake stretched his arms, testing his strength. I won't, he said. But if they try to touch you, they won't, she said. Because you belong to me. Jake stared at her. She added softly, And now, I belong to you too. Whether you like it or not. As she turned away, Jake watched her walk. Graceful, controlled, yet carrying the weight of a broken life. The door opened with a hiss. Alien guards stood there waiting. Jake stood up, ready. Whatever test they had planned, they would soon learn. He was not so easy to break. Blood dripped from Jake's knuckles. The alien he had fought still lay in the pit, unmoving. A crowd of alien guards and nobles cheered above, pounding their fists against the walls of the arena. Jake didn't hear them. He only looked up at one, faced Nara's. She stood above, behind the bars, her eyes locked on his. Her lips didn't move, but her hand pressed softly over her heart. A signal. A promise. Later that night, he lay on the cold floor of their cell again. His body burned with pain, but his mind stayed sharp. Nara sat beside him, placing a wet cloth on his shoulder. Her hands were gentle, her silence was loud. Jake finally spoke. You planned this. She didn't deny it. You knew I'd be thrown into the pit, you knew they'd watch me, you knew I'd survive. I hoped, she said. Jake looked at her. Why? She dipped the cloth in water again. Because now they believe you are strong, useful. They'll keep you alive longer. Jake grinned. Thanks. That's very comforting. She gave a small smile. Alive means we still have time. Jake sat up with a grunt. Time for what? She leaned, closer, whispering, to escape. His eyes locked on hers. You said there's no escape from this place. There isn't, she whispered. Unless you make one. Jake tilted his head. You have a plan? She nodded. Pieces, secrets, whispers from other slaves. He listened carefully as, she explained, there were hidden tunnels under the arena, used for disposing of bodies, moving beasts, and storing weapons. Few knew of them, even fewer returned. But how do you know they're real? Jake asked. She pulled a small item from under her dress, a broken piece of a map, burnt on one edge but still clear. My mother died for this, she said quietly. Jake looked at it. It was alien, but he could tell. Exit routes, gates, sealed vents. A way out. Why didn't you try before? I was alone, she said. And I'm not a fighter. Jake nodded. But now you've got me. She looked at him again. Her voice softened. And I trust you. Jake raised an eyebrow. That's a dangerous thing to say to a human. I know, she said. But when you fought today, you didn't kill for fun. You killed to live. Jake turned to face her, fully. And if we escape, what happens after? She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, I've never lived outside a cage. I don't know who I am without chains. Jake gently touched her hand. Then we'll find out. Together. She blinked, surprised. No one had ever touched her like that, not with kindness. In that moment, something changed between them. A bond, not made of chains or fear, but something else, something fragile and real. But before either could speak again, alarms blared. Outside, red lights flashed. A guard's voice shouted in a harsh alien tongue. Nara stood up quickly, hiding the map inside a crack in the wall. Jake's fists clenched. Did someone see us? He asked. I don't know, she said. But we have to act soon, or they'll move us. Jake nodded. Then let's move first. The escape plan had started, and this time, they weren't just fighting to live. They were fighting to be free. The smell of smoke was the first warning. Jake woke in the dark, his instincts screaming. Something was burning. He sat up fast. Nara was already awake, standing near the wall, her hand pressed to the stone. They're coming, she whispered. A moment later, the wall behind them shifted, loud grinding gears. The hidden panel Nara had spoken about earlier slid open. But instead of freedom, 2 guards stepped through. Not just any guards, enforcers, tall, armored, with glowing red eyes and energy spears in hand. Jake didn't wait. He lunged at the first one, slamming into him like a missile, but the second guard caught him mid-swing and drove an electric rod into his chest. Pain exploded through his body. He collapsed. Nara screamed, but she didn't run. She dropped to her knees beside Jake, covering him with her body. He belongs to me, she shouted. You can't kill him. One of the guards grabbed her by the arm. Not kill, test. Jake groaned as they dragged him through the corridor. The walls were alive with red light now. Sirens wailed. Other slaves peeked from behind bars, silent and afraid. They brought him to a new chamber, cold, quiet, strange. In the center was a platform surrounded by alien nobles. Rich, powerful. Watching with hungry eyes. The warlord sat on a throne made of bones. He raised a hand, and the room fell silent. This one, the warlord said, kills like a beast. But does he think like one? Jake stood straight, breathing hard. Try me. The warlord smiled. The test began. 2 doors opened. From one came a child, small, alien, scared. From the other, a snarling beast, metal limbs, razor claws, eyes glowing with hate. The warlord's voice echoed, cold and cruel. Choose one to save, only one. The other dies. Jake looked between the two. A trap, a test of loyalty, of cruelty, of weakness. The nobles waited, eager to see the human break. But Jake didn't move toward either door. Instead, he grabbed the metal rod from the nearest guard's belt and smashed the control panel on the wall. Sparks flew. Alarms blared again. The doors locked open. Both the child and the beast were frozen in place. Jake turned to the warlord. I don't play games. The room went silent. The warlord stared at him for a long time. Then, he laughed. Loud, deep, shaking the chamber. Very good, he said. Very human. Jake was thrown back into the cell hours later, bloody, tired, but still breathing. Nara rushed to him, helped him sit. What happened? She asked. Jake smirked. They wanted to test my mind. And? He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I passed. She sat beside him, quiet. Then she asked, How much time do we have? Jake looked at her with sharp eyes. Not much. They're watching us now, closer than ever. Nara nodded. Then we move soon. He took her hand. One more fight, that's all I need, then we disappear. She looked into his eyes. No, she said softly. Not one fight. One promise. If we survive this, we stay together. Jake gave a small smile. Deal. Outside, the warlord watched them through a hidden screen. He leaned forward, eyes glowing. Let them think they're free, he whispered. The real test begins now. The walls were bleeding, or at least that's what it looked like to Jake. Thick red liquid ran down the stone, steaming and hissing. Alien bodies lay twisted in the hallway behind them. Guards who once laughed, now silent forever. Jake stood with a cracked weapon in his hand, chest heaving. His arm was cut, his side burned, but his eyes were on her, on Nara. She was standing still, hands at her sides, lips parted like she had just finished a song. Except, there was no sound, only death. Jake whispered, What did you just do? Nara looked at her hands, they were shaking. I broke my vow. Then she dropped to her knees and vomited. Jake rushed to her, holding her up. What happened back there? You didn't touch them. She looked at him, tears in her golden eyes. My voice, she said quietly. It's not just for speech, it's a weapon, a forbidden one. Jake helped her sit against the wall. You killed 5 guards with a whisper. She nodded. It's called the soul tone. My bloodline carries it. We were singers once, warriors of sound. But the warlords outlawed it. Anyone born with the voice was silenced or enslaved. Jake looked back down the hall, where the bodies still steamed. You could have used this before. Escaped. She shook her head. It kills, more than flesh. If I use it too often, it burns my own life away. That's why I never used it before. Jake stared at her. But you used it for me. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Just then, a distant explosion shook the ground. The slave pits were burning. Their small rebellion had begun. Other prisoners had taken up arms. Chaos was spreading. Jake helped Nara to her feet. Can you walk? She stood slowly, her legs weak but her eyes firm. Yes. They moved quickly through the tunnels, following the broken map she had hidden before. Every turn was dangerous. Every shadow could hold a blade. But now Jake looked at Nara with new eyes. She wasn't just a slave. She was power hidden in silence. Fire in disguise, and she had risked everything for him. They reached a sealed door. Jake forced it open with brute strength, and what they saw beyond made them both freeze. Dozens of alien guards stood waiting, guns aimed, ready. The warlord himself stood at the front smiling. You surprised me, he said. I expected blood, but not this much. Jake stepped forward. Let us go. We don't want your empire. The warlord laughed. You have no choice now. You've broken our games. You've stolen our toy. And you've woken the voice, he pointed at Nara. That's why she must die, and you will watch. Jake stepped in front of her. You'll have to go through me. The warlord smiled wider. Gladly. Then he gave the signal. The guards aimed. Jake clenched his fists, and behind him Nara whispered, Cover your ears. He did, and then she sang. A single note. One soft sound, but it was enough. The hallway exploded in silence. Silence had never sounded so loud. When the echo of Nara's voice faded, nothing moved. Not even the air. Jake opened his eyes slowly. Every guard was down, not dead but frozen, eyes wide, weapons dropped. Muscles locked mid-motion. The warlord was on his knees, mouth open, blood trickling from his ears. Nara collapsed in Jake's arms. She sang too much, Jake muttered, holding her close. She gave it all. He shook her gently. Nara. Hey. Wake up. Her eyes fluttered. I'm here. He smiled just a little. Good, because we're not done yet. Alarms blared across the compound. The slaves had risen. Doors were being broken. Chains shattered. Screams of freedom echoed through the halls. Jake stood carrying Nara in his arms. He kicked through a broken door and walked straight into the fire of rebellion. The pits, the same ones where humans and aliens had fought for the sick joy of the nobles, were now battlegrounds. Slaves with stolen weapons fought their former masters. The nobles ran in fear, robes stained in blood. The guards, without orders, broke rank and fled. Jake looked around. Fires burned high, smoke choked the air, and then he saw them. His kind. Humans. 3 soldiers, battered and bruised, fighting beside a group of alien slaves. One of them saw Jake and froze. Sergeant Hayes? Jake smiled. Nice to see someone still standing. You're supposed to be dead. Got promoted to ghost, Jake said, handing Nara to a medic. Keep her safe. She's why you're alive right now. Then he picked up a fallen blade, curved and glowing red. Where's the warlord? The soldier pointed. East platform, trying to escape by shuttle. Jake nodded. Not happening. He stormed through the battlefield like a living weapon. Every enemy that stepped in his way fell. Nara's voice had opened the first door. Jake's fury opened the rest. He reached the platform just as the warlord boarded his ship. Going somewhere? Jake asked, voice like thunder. The warlord turned, bleeding, angry but scared. You're just a human. Jake walked up the ramp, blade in hand. Exactly. He didn't give the warlord a long speech. He didn't need to. A single strike. The end. The rebellion didn't stop with one death, but it found hope in that moment. When Jake walked back down, blood on his chest and smoke in his hair, the slaves saw him as more than a man. They saw him as the one who rose from the pit and broke the chains. He found Nara resting on a cot. Her eyes opened when he knelt beside her. You made it, she whispered. We made it, he said. Outside, the banners of the warlords burned, but inside the old prison something new was growing. Not just freedom, a bond, a future. The war was over, but the silence after the war was louder than any scream. Jake stood at the edge of the broken arena, where blood once soaked the ground and cheers meant death. Now, wind whispered through the ruins. Smoke lifted into the sky, like a spirit finally released. Behind him, the freed slaves gathered, not with fear but with purpose. They looked to Jake and waited. But he wasn't looking at them. His eyes were only on her. Nara lay on a soft bed made from old robes and cloaks, her silver hair spread like a moonlit river. Her breathing was shallow. She hadn't spoken since the final blast of her voice that saved them all. He sat beside her, holding her hand gently. Come on, he whispered. Don't leave now. You did everything. I just helped swing the sword. Her lips moved barely. He leaned closer. You were never just helping, she said. You were the sword. Jake smiled, but his eyes were glassy. They need you. They think I'm the leader, but I'm just a soldier. She shook her head. No, You're more than that now. Then she looked into his eyes. There was something behind her gaze, something heavy. There's something I never told you, she said. Jake waited. Nara took a shaky breath. I wasn't born a slave. Jake blinked. What? She nodded slowly. My mother was royalty, a hidden heir of the old voice clans. When the warlords took power, they hunted us down. She hid me by giving me to a slave family. That's where I grew up. Jake sat back, stunned. So, you're a princess? She gave a weak laugh. A very dusty one. He grinned. That's why you had the voice. Why the warlord wanted you dead. She nodded. And now, the bloodline lives. Jake looked around at the crowd watching. From the distance. They don't just need a fighter. They need a voice, she said. A symbol. He took her hand again. Then we'll give them both. She smiled. In the days that followed, the slave pits were transformed. Jake led the rebuilding. He trained guards, not to oppress, but to protect. Nara taught others who shared her gift, those who could use the voice not for war, but for healing, for peace. The once dark prison became something new, a place of light, of learning, of unity. But they never forgot what they came from. One night, as the twin moons rose high, Jake and Nara stood on the balcony of the old warlord's tower, now turned into a hall of memory. He looked at her. We did it. She leaned against him. No, you did it, I just sang. Jake laughed. You turned your pain into power. She looked up at him, eyes soft. And you turned your rage into hope. They stood in silence for a while. Then she whispered, Do you remember what I said the first time you woke up? Jake smirked. You belong to me now? She nodded. Do you still? He wrapped an arm around her waist. No. She raised an eyebrow. I don't belong to you, Jake said. And you don't belong to me. He pulled her closer. We belong to each other. She smiled. And in that moment, the galaxy felt just a little bit smaller and a lot more human.